Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell, and today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is wondering if she should break up with her husband of 2 months. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Yes, we are not. We are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. So please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings so we shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love.
All right,
And
let's
divorce.
let's get into today's letter. Our letter comes from your awfully wedded wife, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from a sea of doubt. Dear Sam and Sierra, a couple months ago, I, 30-year-old she, her, got married to my partner of 3 years, 31-year-old he, him. Let's call him Adam. I'm writing this letter because I'm not sure I should have gotten married to my overall great guy partner. To put it frankly, I spent the entire year-long engagement with a nagging question in the back of my mind. Is this what you really want? Well, I ignored the question and did in fact get married, but that same voice hasn't gone away. I've had a really tough time over the last couple months or so discerning between what my intuition is telling me and what's just plain old anxiety. I've definitely had some trouble trusting myself due to this, especially when it comes to relationships, so I don't know what to do with these feelings, and I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of doubt. For context, Adam is an excellent partner, and ours is truly one of the healthiest relationships I've had. He is kind, loving, communicative, supportive, fun. My family and friends love him, our values align, and we have a shared vision and goals. When we started dating, I was excited to have finally met somebody who was looking for a committed relationship and who wanted to someday get married and have a family, something I thought I wanted to when we met. That being said, about a year and a half into our relationship, despite recognizing and loving all the wonderful qualities I just mentioned about him, I couldn't shake this tiny feeling from deep within me that kept saying, this isn't right. Because everything in my logical, analytical brain told me that I had nothing to base this on. I chalked it up to the honeymoon phase being over and us having to face more real-life issues. I can definitely lean towards an avoidant attachment style, so I thought us getting more serious, like moving in together, was just triggering those doubts. It was also during this time that I started feeling a disconnect in our sex life as well. Our sex life was always just fine, but suddenly it was like a switch was flipped, and I struggled with attraction to him and needed a lot of mental prep time prior to having sex. Sometimes it feels like I'm having sex with my brother, despite how doting and enthusiastic Adam is. He has a very high sex drive, and mine, which was once high as well in previous relationships, has plummeted. Sometimes when we have sex, it feels like my body is trying to tell me what my brain has been denying. Something is off. Something is not right. But I could never figure out what exactly, so I just carried on. But the rest of our relationship was great. We lived happily together for over a year when I knew the engagement would be coming up. We had been discussing it for months. When I overheard him tell his mom on the phone the exact date he planned to propose, suddenly that formerly subdued "this isn't right" voice was back with a megaphone. But when the time came, I still said yes. Throughout our engagement and wedding planning process, I felt so anxious and surprisingly angry at times. Again, I analyzed my way into thinking of this anger and anxiety as a reaction to wedding-related family drama, wedding industry frustrations, everything being so expensive for just one day, societal expectations around weddings, etc. I Googled calling off a wedding while in a good relationship because, again, everything in my relationship should have been great. Adam was supportive and patient with me and took on a lot of the wedding planning duties. Even my mom asked me if I really wanted to get married because of how I was acting. But at this point, I felt pressure and was perhaps afraid of what the answer might be if I took the time to really ponder the question. Anyway, I was not brave enough to listen to this voice. The wedding day morning, I was so anxious I felt physically ill and threw up. My best friend took one look at me and asked if I wanted to leave. But still, there was so much left to do to get ready. I got caught up and distracted by the mess of throwing a party. Then the next thing I knew, I was married. I love Adam, but I cannot shake this feeling that I've made a mistake. Both of us were raised to see divorce as a failure, and I don't want to hurt him, but I also cannot fathom feeling this way for forever. I can't help but think that this wouldn't be happening if I were with the, quote, right person. With previous partners, I've often gotten bored when the relationship settled into healthy, everyday life, and at first I thought that was happening with Adam, but now I'm not so sure. I'm also questioning lately whether I actually want children, a fear I have discussed with Adam, but this too just makes me think that I don't know what I want, period. How do I even bring this up? How do I deal with the shame and embarrassment of not speaking up sooner? What do you believe when you have so little evidence to support your instinct? What do you do when everything in your body and your psyche is saying, this is not your person, when the person in front of you is still a good, true love? Any advice or musings you may have are so welcome. Love you both. Sincerely, your awfully wedded wife.
Oh, my darling, thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this very delicate letter. I'm so sorry you're feeling so isolated and confused in all of this. This is definitely not how I would wish that you would feel during your marital planning and your wedding and your, first couple months of being married. So I'm sorry. First and foremost, I want to say I believe you. I believe how you're feeling. And I'm sorry that this is not unfolding the way that you had hoped it would or whatnot. I personally really relate to this sense of shame and what feels like self-betrayal when you feel like you don't know how to listen to yourself and you don't know what's true. That has resonated in my life over the years and has made me, make decisions I wasn't proud of. It has made me make anti-decisions, which is what I feel like is happening here, where I'm not really sure what's real or what's true or what's valid. And me just feeling a certain way wasn't enough to validate anything. And so I didn't make any decisions. I just stayed where I was. And that I think particularly fuels our own self-loathing when we feel like, well, I can't even make a decision. I don't even know what's right. What's wrong with me if I'm not happy? And I don't even know what's wrong, So I feel for you. I feel like the tension in your heart and your relationship with yourself and your relationship with your husband. And I also feel like this underlying unspoken stress to be on this relationship escalator, of getting older, dating, getting engaged, getting married, and then having kids, and the unspoken pressure of all of that, I think might be adding to some of your internal confusion. I'm not totally sure, but I would guess that. Sam and I are going to talk about that and unpack what we see from our perspective over here on the internet. But first, we're going to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Everything that Sierra said is absolutely true. This is such a tricky situation to be in. And, I just want to name that relationships coming to an end, if that's what happens with your relationship. But in general, relationships coming to an end doesn't mean it's a failure, right? It doesn't mean that we've done something wrong. Sometimes relationships end for really good reasons, right? Even if both people are wonderful and kind to each other, but because it's not working or because logistics can't happen or because
it's not right. Yeah.
It's not right. Absolutely. And that's all okay. And I know that we've been told over and over that the successful relationships are the ones that last the longest. And that's not actually true, right? The most successful relationships are the ones in which people feel supported, affirmed, and loved by their partners and want to offer support, love, and affirmation to their partner. And sometimes that is possible for us, and sometimes it's not for lots of different reasons. So I just want to name that because I know that the guilt and embarrassment that you're feeling over the idea that, like, how did I let this go on so long? / oh my gosh, our relationship or our marriage is only a couple months old. How could I possibly be thinking that maybe it's not working? And just name that, we can't predict or understand when our hearts are going to help us decide something or when something's going to come up for us. And so part of the job that we have is to be paying attention and to recognize that there is no set timeline for us to be in relationship with people, right? There's no one way of doing it. There's just a bunch of different ways of trying things out. And I say that in terms of the idea of longevity, but I also say that in terms of the idea of this relationship escalator that it feels like you may have caught yourself on, right? And I don't mean this in like a disparaging way, because like so many of us are brought up to think and understand that this is the way things are done, and we're not offered a lot of opportunities or conceptions that are outside of that relationship escalator, right? You know, I remember my parents telling me like the order was, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have kids. Like that was it. And I had to like recite it back to them. And like, that's not what happened, unfortunately. But like that sort of like idea that there's a right way to do it is not just hard because it excludes folks who may not want that, or who aren't capable of being in that relationship escalator because of who they love or how they love or all of the different things that might be happening, but also because many of us can get caught on that relationship escalator and not see a path off of it, right? We're just like, oh, here we go. This is it. I should be happy. I should be happy. This is good. This is good. But like something is telling us not right, but we're looking around and we're like, well, where's the off ramp, right? Like these stairs are moving up. There's no other direction to be going. So what am I supposed to do? And the idea that there's a one size fits all way of being in relationship can make us feel like our instincts or our intuition needs to be quieted or flattened, because we're being told like, no, look, you're going the right way. You're moving in the right direction. Even if our hearts are like, wait a minute, maybe I need to jump off. Like maybe I need to go down a few steps. Maybe I need an elevator, but we just don't see that because everyone is kind of pointing to this escalator as being the only way of doing it. So I don't know if that's what's happening here, but it sounds like there's elements of that where, and I'm honestly really curious about this, if that relationship escalator didn't exist for you and Adam, and if you two could instead kind of see each other as people and not potential partners, married partners, but instead just like, who is this person in front of me, and what sort of relationship could we develop together that doesn't have a decided trajectory at the beginning of it? It makes me wonder whether or not you and Adam could have found, or in this moment too, could find a way of being together in a way that feels like less pressure and more about like, what does it look like for you two to actually see each other as humans who you may want to be in relationship with, rather than somebody who's going to be able to tick all of the boxes to get you to the end goal that other people have kind of assigned to you in your relationship.
I agree. I'm going to say this first. I'm going to acknowledge that I feel in your letter, I feel a lot of conflicting true feelings, right? Like you have all these very true, autonomous, good feelings about your partner, and you also have these very true autonomous feelings of hesitation, doubt, dread, and both of these things are real at the same time. And I don't think Sam and I aren't here to try to convince you that either one is more important than the other. But I also agree with Sam in that I can, reading between the lines here, I do feel some of that pressure of the escalator, pressure of like, this is just the next thing you do. You don't say no to an engagement from a person that you love. You don't say no to that, You don't not have children once you get married to a dream guy, right? And so I feel a lot of anxiety from that sort of assumed escalator. And I wonder what it would feel like to be in relationship with Adam, like not thinking about the fact that you're married right now. It's just a legal document. It's just a piece of paper that you signed. And yeah, you spent all that money, but you're still in the same relationship, right? I get it. There's 1,000 ways that you can say, but it'd be a lot harder to break up with this person. Sure. Yeah. And also you could just do it. You could end this marriage. This is not a unbreakable vow. This is not a bond that is unbreakable, right? You would just end it. Like thousands and thousands of people end relationships every day. They end good relationships every day. But I wonder, like, if the pressure of saying yes, the pressure of being happy in this you perceive to be perfect relationship is something that's making it hard for you to access your autonomous feelings. Like, okay, so So you're married now, but what really does that change? Maybe the pressure to have a family, maybe the pressure to quote work, to stay together forever. Okay, let's pretend those pressures aren't there, right? Nobody cares if you don't have kids. Maybe a mother-in-law will be pissed, but whatever. If you get divorced, okay, do you think your friends are going to judge you? You think your friends aren't going to understand that relationships end all the time? It sounded like your best friend was like already cued in and ready to help you like jump on a horse and get away.
For sure. Absolutely. Julia Roberts style.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like, anxiety loves to be like, there are no escapes here. This is the only way things are going to go. You're stuck here or whatever. But I'm trying to just open up the horizon and make you feel like you are an active agent of change in your life, and that you're choosing this. You're choosing to be with Adam today. And tomorrow you're going to choose to be with him until you choose not to be. And it doesn't matter that you're married. It doesn't matter that you spent money on the wedding. So what? I remember, this is wildly unrelated, but I've said this on the show before because it helped like shake me loose. When I first moved to Minneapolis, I was really depressed. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay there. I was having a really hard time. I was like struggling with my mental health, and I called my sister and I was like, "Oh, I hate it here." This is before I met Sam.
Yeah.
And
once she met me, she was like, "Oh my God, this place is amazing. I never want to leave."
In true codependent fashion. Anyway, so we were like, she said, well, why don't you just move home? You could do that if you wanted to. And I said, well, I've got a lease. And my sister was like, people break leases all the time, Sierra. People get divorced all the time. People end relationships, good relationships, all the time. So maybe something that will shake you from this sense of powerlessness is to say, I have power. I have power in this relationship. I can choose to when and how we have sex. I can choose how I interact with my partner. I can choose to be in this relationship. I can choose to leave it. And this is not that I don't sympathize with what got you here. Like I said at the beginning, I really see myself in this self-denial, like the tamping down of that little voice that you were ignoring this whole time. I get it. I've been there. And also, nothing's going to change until something changes. So maybe the first step of change is saying, I have choice in this. I am married to this person, but I am just in a relationship with them, like any other relationship, and this relationship can end. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. I know where that feeling is coming from. But again, nothing's going to change until something changes. So if you don't want to believe you are a failure for ending a relationship like all good people do, then that has to shift. You have to tell yourself, I'm not a failure if I end this relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really clear to me that you don't want to be in a relationship with Adam that looks like the current relationship that you're in, right? Like you don't want to feel pressured to have sex. You don't want to be at you don't want to be at the beck and call of everyone who's telling you how you should be living your life. You don't want to be in a place where it feels like you don't have an out, where you have to be on this train and that train is moving towards a particular destination and you don't get any choice in it, right? That sounds like a really hard place to be in. That sounds like a relationship that isn't super fulfilling in lots of different ways. But I also want to say that like you could have a different type of relationship with him, right? But you're going to have to start saying things like, oh, actually, I don't want to have sex tonight, right? Or actually, let's throw what our mothers want us to do for our wedding out the window and instead think about what the two of us want, right? Like it's going to have to look like, oh, this marriage thing, I don't know if I get it. So can the two of us talk about what our relationship can and should look like? And we get to decide as opposed to what everyone else gets to decide. And my hope is that like Adam is the type of person that can step up to that and say, yeah, let's co-create what we want our relationship to look like. Where can we find compromise with each other? Where can we find places where we're going to buck the norms and places where we're going to embrace them? But in this moment, it sounds like you are having a hard time deciding whether Adam is for you because you don't like the relationship that you're in, right? And I mean that not like you don't like the person that you're with. You don't like the way that this relationship has unfolded because it feels so outside of your control. And I want you to like remember, like Sierra said, and decide that you two, you and Adam, as people in this relationship who are autonomous humans, who are diverse in your experiences and unique in the ways that you are approaching the world, you two get to decide what a relationship would look like with each other. And it doesn't have to have all of these things as part of it, right? I want you to like, I'm thinking about it as like, I want you to queer your relationship, right? And that doesn't mean that you go and like have sex across lots of different genders, unless that's what you want to do, in which case, please do that. But like, I want you to start thinking about it as outside of the traditional norms that might exist around what heterosexual couples should be doing. And instead recognize, as many queer people have to do because of the fact that we don't fit into that box, that there's a world outside of that box and that we get to make decisions about what the relationships that we want to be in look like in consensual practice with the people that we're in relationships with. And, you know, you're saying all these wonderful things about Adam, and I trust that he's wonderful. And so I believe that the two of you could create a relationship together that makes you feel less like you are being dragged along towards something that you don't want to be doing. And more so, like you two are like, I don't know, gardeners together, building something with the types of flowers and vegetables and structures and tastes and smells and colors that you want, rather than following some sort of like set path of what a garden should look like. And if he's capable of doing that, I love that. And I hope that he is. But I also recognize that he might not be. And that's also something that's really scary in this, like something that could be really challenging for you. But you deserve it to yourself. And you also deserve it, or you need to do this for yourself. And this is also something that you can offer to Adam, because right now you two are not in a relationship that's working for you. And you deserve better. And he deserves to know that the way that this relationship is going, that the parameters around it, the structures, the sort of way that you're being pulled in a direction you don't necessarily want to go, he deserves to know that, and he deserves the opportunity to step up with you into something different that's going to work better for you. And if he can't do that, he can't do that. And that's
that
really...
could be, but you guys could step up together into something better, and that could be together or apart.
Absolutely.
But you gotta be two active players in that.
For sure.
That was great, Sam. All right, my darling, we know this is really tricky and sensitive, and it's not going to be like an easy Band-Aid on any of this. All of your feelings deserve to be heard and explored, and hopefully some of this resonated and helps you see things differently so that you can start enacting small changes day by day. We love you so much, and we hope this helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We love you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those office hours, which is when Sierra and I hop on Zoom with any of our patrons who would like to join us, and we answer questions, have funny and meaningful conversation with folks, and generally learn a bunch of stuff from other people on the chat because they are very smart and wonderful. If you sign up now, you can get access to those monthly office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into your DM, send us your favorite relationship meme, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of David Media, original music recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and music. And remember, it's okay to end good relationships. It's okay that you didn't listen to your feelings. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're broken. We all lean away from ourselves sometimes. We are all led astray by other forces. This is a part of life. This is a part of learning yourself. And you have this beautiful opportunity right now to start listening to those feelings, to start changing the way you interact with your own instincts. It starts day by day, small changes every day. And if all else fails,
Just wake up.